You have found Behind the Lines, presented by BetMGM, part of the Lines Podcast Network, and it is Super Bowl 58 week, a rematch of the 49ers and the Chiefs a couple of years ago. Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan. Take out Jimmy Garoppolo. Insert potentially the new Tom Brady story in Brock Purdy taking on the Game of Thrones king on the Iron Throne, Patrick Mahomes. And in this episode, we are going to break down the 5 most intriguing bets that are getting some action over at BetMGM. And nobody better to talk about that than the trading manager over at the Sportsbook, Christian Cipollini. Christian, happy Super Bowl week to you, sir.
Yeah, happy to you too. Getting close to it now. So we got majority of our markets up. So excited for everything to come through.
We had a lot of fun on this show last year. It should be just as much fun with the Super Bowl in Las Vegas for the first time. I know you and I both remember when betting was a curse word for the NFL and their Rubicon and their lexicon. So I think we are pretty happy at the way things have evolved here since PASPA and ready to have the first Las Vegas Super Bowl. So let's not waste any time here, Christian. Let's get into it. What is the first of your 5 most intriguing bets that you guys are seeing action on over at BetMGM?
So the first one I'll go with here is the Gatorade Bath. Of these like novelty props, national anthem, what first song at the Super Bowl, most of those aren't approved in most states, but Gatorade Bath surprisingly is approved in a decent amount of states. And that one takes a good amount of action. Right now, the most liability that we have is on orange. After that, it's pink/red, and then yellow, green, lime after that. So those 3 are grabbing liability, taking a lot of bets. But that's not the favorite. Purple is the favorite. Not taking a lot of action there, though, so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to bet the Gatorade Bath, who the hell wants to bet the favorite, Christian? I mean, like, come on here. If you're going to take a long shot, of course you're going to do, one of the Gatorade Bath. There's a good spot for it. I have a suspicion, and in full disclosure to everybody, I have not heard these props until Christian is telling me here on the show as we record. So you're getting genuine reaction to all these, and I will share if I'm also going to bet any of these myself. I am curious to see what one of our freelance writers, John Hasselbauer, who does a lot of golf for us, thinks of the Gatorade. He loves the Gatorade Bath bet, bets it every year. So we'll see what he goes with this time around. You can follow him on Twitter at PGA Tout for that. But I suspect, Christian, that you're getting action on the orange Gatorade Bath because we've already seen Andy Reid doused in orange Gatorade when they've won the Super Bowl in the past, and therefore a game that's got almost a 50-50 chance in terms of the spread, that's at least one known, right? And how often is a team going to change their Gatorade color year over year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of the angle. Purple isn't a team color of any of the teams, too, so, it's a little questionable why that one's the favorite, so people are going to obviously go with, and then you get pink-red going for the 49ers colors, so it does add up there.
I came on this week on our show, Christian. I've done all my research for X's and O's and offense versus defense and micro matchups for this game, and lo and behold, the first bet that people are gravitating towards is the freaking Gatorade Bath color. You got to love it, man. It's like a brave new world of sports betting for Super Bowl 58. So let's move on to the second intriguing bet that's been getting a lot of action for you guys over at BetMGM.
Yeah, I've removed most of the player props out of this one, but this one I wanted to keep in because it is interesting. We've taken a lot of bets and there's been movement. This one opened at 0.5 yards, but Kyle Juszczyk over 0.5 yards. We were taking a ton of action. We have moved that up to 3.5 yards and still getting a ton of over action. And it also is over a half reception has been getting a ton of action. Enough action where it was very noticeable to me that was on there. So I definitely wanted to call it out.
Wow, that's interesting. Let's pull up his game log here and give me a second to do this. I know that obviously when you get some action on props like this, there's some recency bias that people are gravitating towards in terms of his usage. So in the playoffs, he has been getting some work here, at least in the Lions game. He had 2 receptions for 33 yards, and he did that on 3 targets. And I know as a Niners fan watching that game, he looked like a all-pro wide receiver with his toe drag swag on one of them out there. This is not your everyday fullback. If we look at the rest of his game log here, Christian, he played in all 17 games this year, but I pull up his game log, and there are not 17 game logs because there's a lot of games where he got no action whatsoever and no touches. So just among, let me count them up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games, including the Lions game in the NFC Championship. Of those 11 games, he had a reception in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. So 8 of the 11 games he's got touches, but that's not the real handicap, right? He played in 17 games. He had a reception in 8 of them. And the final game that actually mattered, the Washington game, he did have 3 receptions for 23 yards. That was a blowout. He did not have any stats in the Green Bay game in the divisional round. So is there value on an under when it's as low as a half of a catch and 3.5 receiving yards? Potentially here. It's interesting to say the least. The other side of the handicap for me of this would be the injury situation. George Kittle has popped up with a toe injury that Jeremy Fowler is reporting is a legitimate injury. He would not have practiced if the Niners had an injury report last week. And that's maybe to blame for his lack of production in the Lions game. So we'll see if that's a factor and why they use Kyle Juszczyk a little bit more. He's basically the Niners' number 2 tight end, that kind of H-back role that can shift into a fullback position or go out to the other side of the line of scrimmage and be a tight end as well. So I think that's maybe why he got a few more targets against Detroit. So I've kind of given you both cases here. There's been plenty of games where he's gotten no touches, but if this Kittle injury is legitimate and it's going to bother him again, then maybe we do get some overs here. So, but shout out to his wife, who's the story of the whole Super Bowl, for making that Kelsey coat for Taylor Swift. So I want to know if she's making anything for Super Bowl week now that the two teams are playing each other. So that'd be like a violation in my book of fandom code.
I'm sure not for Travis, but I'm sure she's got something up her sleeve for 49ers out there.
Yeah, wild Super Bowl week. That you never know what you're going to get action on, right? And lo and behold, it's Kyle Juszczyk props.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one because it's usually a tough one to handicap. As you mentioned, he normally doesn't get a lot of carries, but he is somebody that will be potentially brought out in a big game in spots where they may not expect it. And he's kind of a utility guy that might get there. So I think that kind of explains the action we've seen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just looking at his snap counts too for this season, that's the other thing we got to keep in mind here is, is he even on the field enough to be involved? And looking at the regular season, I mean, not a single game where he played 70% of the snaps. So he is a specialized package player, even though he is one of the best fullbacks in the NFL. There's going to be a lot of times when the Niners go, 11 personnel with only one back on the field with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I'm looking at his snap counts here for the season. 1, 2, 3 games the entire regular season where he played more than 60% of the snaps. So, all right, I've given you kind of the bull and the bear case for Kyle Juszczyk. Again, was not what I was expecting on this show, but that's what I love about this episode of Behind the Lines every year, Christian. It's awesome. All right, your third most intriguing prop taking action over at BetMGM.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2-point conversions here. Both the combo of will there one be attempted, and then will there be a successful one? For a successful, we've taken all of our bets, not a single bet on the no, just on the yes, which makes sense based on the price. And you're not going to bet a no in that situation in the Super Bowl. Going to be rooting for an exciting 2-point conversion. So yeah, a lot of action on successful 2-point conversion at plus 275.
If you're asking me to know off the top of my head how often there are 2-point conversions and how often they are converted in the Super Bowl, I'm sorry, I can't help you there. But
I can't tell you on the Super Bowl, but what I can tell you is San Francisco has not attempted a 2-point conversion this season.
Interesting. That makes sense to me because they play with the lead a ton, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm almost positive they have not attempted one this season.
The only way I could see it, happening for the Niners other than getting behind in this game, which I think are going to see a lot of situation neutral. The game has been a 2-point spread the whole way. These teams are as close as you can get, basically, in terms of team ratings and market ratings at this point. I mean, the only angle I can think of for the Niners side, at least, Jake Moody has been, including on extra points. So if he misses an extra point and the Niners are trying to chase those points later and go for a 2-point conversion, maybe that's it. Low total game, fewer opportunities for 2-point conversions, I think. So this is not one where I'd be taking the over or taking the yes that there's going to be a 2-point conversion or a successful 2-point conversion. Just my opinion, but I mean, who are these people, Christian? Like, I know you have KYC. I want names. I want names of the people who have bet the most money on 2-point conversion props. I love it. These are the people that I need to watch football with. These are my kind of people. Absolutely love it. All right, number 4.
I'll go to first touchdown scorer because that's always an interesting one people want to hear about. So we have liability on only 4 players at the moment. The one with our most liability is Brock Purdy. Our second most liability is Patrick Mahomes. So people going on the quarterbacks there. Our most bet, and then up there with our most liability is of course Travis Kelce. That one makes sense. He's usually always there. And then our only other one with liability is the one I touched on earlier, Kyle Juszczyk, at a nice big price.
My kind of people, man. My kind of people. Using the Super Bowl as a lottery ticket. All right, Brock Purdy has 2 rushing touchdowns this year. Not your typical rushing quarterback. That's for sure. The 2 touchdowns he had came very early in the year, one against Arizona, one against the LA Rams. So take that for what it's worth. Mahomes obviously has been rushing a little bit more, especially in the playoffs. We see that kind of uptick as we go. He does not have a rushing touchdown in the postseason. And believe it or not, he doesn't have a rushing touchdown in the regular season either. So for his career, though, we have seen him, run into the end zone. It's not uncommon for him to do that. He had 4 rushing touchdowns last year in the regular season, and then 2 rushing touchdowns in each of the 4 previous years before that. Kyle Juszczyk, we talked about his snaps. We talked about his passing stats and all that. Has not scored a touchdown in the postseason. For the regular season, has 2 receiving touchdowns. The last one was Week 10 in the blowout win at Jacksonville. He also had one in the blowout win against the Cowboys. So maybe you should be rooting for a blowout if you want Kyle Juszczyk to score here. But the first touchdown, this is Christian McCaffrey territory we're talking about here. Like the king of the anytime touchdown. And Christian, I'm sorry, what was the 4th one?
Travis
Kelce. Okay, now we're talking here. Like that, That makes a lot of sense to me. You got the Taylor Swift angles and the chemistry he obviously has with Mahomes. His touchdowns are down this year compared to previous years, but obviously still a threat at any point. And I will say, if we're going to look at similar matchups, similar players, because we did see a lot of Fred Warner and Travis Kelce in the first time these 2 teams played in the Super Bowl, even though it was a few years ago. And Kelce should have had a touchdown in that game, if not for a pass interference, if I remember correctly. And this playoff run, he had 2 touchdowns against the Bills, 1 touchdown against the Ravens. Overall this season, 5 touchdowns. But to end the regular season, he went 6 consecutive games without a touchdown. So they figured something out here. I will say that. I mean, is he the same player he was last year? We had 12 touchdowns or 20 touchdowns combined in the 2 years before that, from 2020 to 2021. No, I think he's lost a step. But what is most interesting to me about the Chiefs offense since the embarrassing loss to the Raiders is that they've started to concentrate the volume of targets in their offense to their 3 best players, more so than they did for the vast majority of the regular season. We've seen about a 12 to 15% uptick in the number of targets that Kelce, Pacheco, and Rashee Rice have gotten compared to the regular season. So Mahomes is going with his best playmakers and who he trusts. And what I would say is, Christian, quick question before I make this point. Do you guys leave your touchdown props up during the game as a live market at all for an anytime touchdown or first touchdown score?
Yeah, we'll keep any time up, and then we'll have next touchdown scorer going throughout the game.
Okay. So that's a nice little perk. Now, when the Chiefs have the ball, you're going to get lesser odds on an anytime touchdown or a
Yep.
first touchdown. And then when the Niners have the ball, you're going to get lesser odds on them because obviously they have the ball and they're more likely to score a touchdown. But what I have noticed about the 49ers defense the past couple of games, they've come out not blitzing, only rushing 4 and dropping 7 into coverage. And they've been sitting in zone the first half. And they got blistered by the Lions doing that. And then the second half, they changed to more man. They had Ward shadowing Amon-Ra St. Brown. I say that because nobody's better than Travis Kelce in finding holes in his own defense. So if you're watching early in the game and the Niners and Steve Wilks are trotting out that zone defense again early in the game, well, now Kelce is, extremely live to score an early touchdown in that game. So that's kind of my handicap of that one. But yeah, of those 4, Christian, I think I'd probably just go with Kelce or Mahomes over the 2 very unlikely Niners touchdown scores there.
Yeah,
All right,
so the only thing I will say, just the one thing I wanted to say about the 2 quarterbacks, I just wanted to also touch on the fact that we're getting liability on the score touchdown. We've been getting a ton of liability on both their rushing attempts and rushing yards, both Purdy and Mahomes. Probably, you touched on it, Mahomes does tend to run more in the playoffs for whatever reason that may be. And then Purdy in the last 2 games made a couple big plays with his legs. So I'd imagine that's where that action's coming from, and that probably leads into the first touchdown score of getting quarterback bets there.
Yeah, it makes sense. The yards haven't been there for Mahomes. He's had less than 20 yards rushing last 2 playoff games against the Ravens and Bills, although he's had 6 attempts. So it seems like teams have been kind of preparing for that more so after he ran for 41 yards and only 2 attempts against the Miami Dolphins. And, during the regular season, he was averaging about 5 yards per carry when he did run. And just looking at his game log, I'm seeing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a decent amount. More than half of his games, he's gone for more than 20 rushing yards. But late in the season, he started dialing that back a little bit. Brock Purdy really didn't run much at all during the regular season. If you look at his overall rushing stats on the year, less than 200 rushing yards in the regular season. If you look at his game logs during the regular season, he had 2 games where he had at least 20 rushing yards. The season opener against Pittsburgh, and then he had 57 rushing yards in the loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that he's not really a big rusher, but in the playoffs, he has really picked it up. Like you can count on one hand the number of times he had 5 carries in a game during the regular season. In both playoff games, he's had 5 carries. 5 carries against the Lions, 6 against the Packers, 14 yards on those 6 carries against Green Bay, 48 yards on those 5 carries against Detroit. So it seems that he's been much more willing to run the ball in the postseason if a guy is not open, and maybe that he's been coached up to do that. So it's certainly an interesting angle there for sure. I do like the idea of Purdy maybe scrambling in this game with the Chiefs playing man coverage behind it, and if he's not able to get to his first or his second read. So, yeah, I like that. That's one I actually like. I do like the Purdy one probably more than the Mahomes one because the number is going to be lower. I assume the Purdy number is a lot lower than the Mahomes rushing number, Christian.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then I believe you get a better price too. I know for our rushing attempts, we do have 4.5. So you mentioned he's rushed 5 times, but that is juiced. It's like minus 140 or something like that to the over, but still taking over bets.
Yeah, and I don't think Kittle is healthy. I don't know how effective he's going to be at separating. And I think Brandon Ayuk is going to draw a ton of L'Jarius Sneed in this game, one of the best corners in the league this year. So target trees, the branches are shrinking there for who he wants to throw to and whether they're going to get open. So I think you're going to see a ton of CMC and Debo in this game, just as a 49ers fan trying to forecast how this is going to play out. So if those 2 guys aren't there, if his reads are there, I could see some more scrambling. So, all right, Christian, 5th and final most intriguing bet that you guys have been taking action on over at BetMGM.
Yeah, always got to go with this one. It is our most bet on prop of this, the coin toss.
Oh my goodness. Here we go again.
But we have a little bit different this year. For the first time that I can remember, at least, we have more action on heads than we do tails.
But tails never fails, Chris.
I know that's usually why we end up with tails. I'm not sure what happened this year.
All right, let me bring up the coin toss page at thelines.com. We actually have this with all the odds history of the Super Bowl coin toss for those that might be interested. You can find that over at the site, or you could just search coin toss thelines.com and Google. It'll pop right up. So looking at the coin toss history, 27 times it has landed heads. 30 times it has landed tails. So 53% tails, 47% heads. Clearly, Christian, all of these bettors have looked at the coin toss analytics and realized that heads is due for positive regression back towards 50%. Clearly.
Clearly, yep.
The longest streak we have had is tails 4 times in a row. And the teams who have won the coin toss the most, the Cowboys with 6, the 49ers with 5, the Dolphins at 4. This may shock all of you to realize that it has less to do with the coin and more to do with the team actually being at the 50-yard line in the Super Bowl with a chance to win the coin toss. You're not going to find the Detroit Lions on the list of the most coin toss wins. So looking back at the last 10 coin tosses, Christian, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we have 3 heads. That's it.
Whew.
So positive regression. I should have had Eli on the show. He could tell us all about his favorite term in sports betting, positive regression.
They're on
this is your turn to add your coin toss analysis. That's going to blow us all away.
It's all I got. I got nothing on it. So maybe that's it. It's due.
All right, let me ask you this. How does the handle for the coin toss bet compare to like some of the other stuff, popular markets that you have out there? Is it wild or?
Yeah, the coin toss will end up with more handle than a college basketball game for Sunday on that day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I think there's like 12 college basketball games. I bet the coin toss will have more handle than at least half, probably maybe all of them.
Yeah. My favorite analysis every year, and I say this with a tongue in cheek, the people that like do segments and book people to try and give you the science of the coin and how it's not an actual coin and even weight on both sides because it's a special commemorative coin and maybe one side weighs more than the other side and therefore is going to be on the bottom more. Like, it's a freaking coin, okay? Just chill.
You just mentioned that and it brought up a point that I wanted to mention. Our biggest liability on correct score is that owes the Mentalist clip. I don't know if you've seen it, but I believe it's with Valdez Scantling or Mecole Hardman when whoever was on the Jets. He did something for the Jets and he predicted 31-21, and that is our most bet on score where we have millions in liability at this point.
So earlier this season he predicted the final score of this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, but it's a little bit weird because Hardman was on the Jets, and then he got traded to the Chiefs, but it was 49ers versus the Jets, so I guess the angle was that was the team he was on. I'm not really sure exactly where this is coming from. It hasn't made much sense to me, but that one is by far our most liability. So sometimes
you said millions if that happens?
Yes.
And what were the odds on 31-21?
Well, we keep having to move it down because we keep taking action, but it was started at somewhere around, I'm sure, 400, 500 to 1, as most correct scores are. But yeah, the clips was running around earlier in the week, and we just kept taking bets on it, which was similar to last year or 2 years ago, where there was a Simpson clip. I think it was 2 years ago, Bengals Rams.
It was a
Simpsons clip with that. And we had a ton of liability. Similar story coming up this year.
Super Bowl's unlike any other game you guys book all season, isn't it?
Yes. Sometimes we put in a lot of work making sure our numbers are right, and then it all gets turned on its head because of some clip that we didn't expect on.
Some clip. And if by some miracle it happens, what's that conversation like with your bosses if by some miracle that happens?
It was a magician. He knew that's going to be the conversation.
Oh, man. Christian, we appreciate it as always, man. This is always such a fun show every single year. It's going to be awesome to see how this turns out. Let's do one more show next week, put a wrap on it, see how things went. We'll also look at your opening odds for Super Bowl 59 at BetMGM. before we say so long for the off season, and look forward to having you back next year. But thank you again for all of your insights all season long. It's so fun to hear about all this stuff over at BetMGM.
Yeah, of course. Always a good time. This one's a great one. Tons of prop bets, tons of fun going around.
Who's winning the Super Bowl?
I'm changing my mind because now I think I might go back to the 49ers. I was Chiefs, but I think I'm going back to the Niners.
All right, there it is. Christian Cipollini, trading manager over at BetMGM. His prediction is the 49ers. I will give my prediction out on the Megapod on our channel later on this week. If you enjoyed it, do us a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments if you're betting any of these awesome, unique, intriguing bets that Christian shared. Maybe think twice about the mentalist angle. Just saying. Anyway, awesome show. Enjoyed it. Best of luck to everybody, and enjoy Super Bowl 58.